Saw a good movie, Superman. Now I got the backpack full of goods, mostly for my anonymous friend. Got about more than 44 pounds. And I got this one here, not so heavy. This one I got some goods for me, for my anonymous friend. And this one's full, got some 3 bottles of 2 liters, so that's already 10 pounds. And got some of those, that you freezies for my anonymous friend. And it's quite, the backpack is not the red one, because this one holds more weight and it's more stable, so I just gotta put it on, still military grade. And we're going back to the headquarters and clipping it in, and just finished watching the movie, shopping. I stayed within budget. I had a $14 budget and it was $11, so still $3 left, I guess. So tomorrow's another day, gonna add to that budget, because it's a tight financial times. And here I am in my own neighborhood, just passing through. Grateful, thankful, my rent's paid, electricity bill's paid, and the movie was $5. Great movie, I don't mind to see it again. Superman, great soundtrack. That's sometimes funny dialogue and great special effects and rock and rolling. I really love watching the movie, and that's how we're gonna drill it now. Going back to my headquarters, doing this workout with these weights on the back. Got these added weights, and it's always good to get a little bit of that fundamental, and always good to get it on the drill. And heading towards the sun, and now heading north. Gonna head west, then south, then west, then south, then west, until we arrive to my headquarters. So second part, July 29th. Grateful, thankful, my rent's paid, electricity bill's paid, and still gotta pay my phone bill. I guess we got some deadlines, and I guess sometimes we go right on the deadline, and then I gotta pay my rent again, 1st of August. Pay the electricity bill again, and again pay my phone bill. You know how it is. And although financially stressed, I got a lot of things to be grateful for, because I got that food at home when I get back. And when I get back to that food, I always got to get it on that presentation, and we got to get it on the go, and we got to get on that hydration. And that's what we do here, Gotta let that main out and get a little bit of that concentrate, and get a little bit of left, right, and in the middle here. I love that. That is really beautiful, really nice. And that's how we go, and that's all we got, and that's all we got, to get it in and out. And we get it in for the Dragon vs. Storm special event, Beautiful sun, cloudy a bit. Always encouraging all the workout, train, exercise. Always putting these marching steps for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the firefighters, the plumbers, and those who put that exquisite public garden there. I could see some flowers, although I see blurred. And here we are, going on the drill and going on the go now, as we are, of course, advancing. And sometimes we gotta get that physical journey started. I started my fitness journey back, of course, in 2017 when I crossed Canada coast to coast, and that event made me come out of being depressed and suicidal, and that was something which, of course, I have to acknowledge and discuss, because if somebody out there, makes it up this video and has experienced or is experienced depression and suicidal tendency, especially if you're part of not just my LGBTQ community, because I played that androgynous pansexual for years and years and years. I've been out in the open, there's no problem there. But of course, yours truly, as I do say, state, of course, that not just for my fellow Aspies, but in general, as a manner, of course, of the prudential manners of which we equilibrate and coefficiency and cohabitate. And we have to build bridges together. Myself is part of the neurotypical community, then, which are not a lot. There's not a lot of LGBTQers out there. It's more the LGBTQ community is more than, of course, neurodivergent community, and the neurodivergent community of Aspies lays at 0.44%, and of course the 0.44 community is of course less than 1 percentile, less than half percentile, and that's what I have to always build bridges consequently with you, the neurotypicals, who constitute the 99.56%, sometimes small bridges, medium-sized bridges, and build bridges, and whatever the case may be, you gotta build those bridges, and consequentially, big bridges, small bridges, big medium-sized bridges, or extra large bridges, of course, those 4 categories can be furthermore split into other 4 categories and 4 subcategories, that is, to the 4 main categories thereof. But we live together, and of course myself as an Aspie don't have antagonistic, resentful feelings towards the 99.56%, you the neurotypicals, and it's always a bridges of understanding and working together in this world that we share together, you know. So, but that's just sometimes more difficult to do, and it requires some understanding and level of cooperation in certain levels where we don't know exactly how to communicate with our fellow human beings in a way that is neurotypical, you know, because the neurotypical population, you the 99%, you do not have the mutations of the brain that we Aspies do. I gotta give some salutation to that beautiful color. I love the embellishment, more of the colorfulness of the graffiti art that's there in the corner, always refreshes and puts an extra big smile on my face, quadrupling my smile. And I always gotta give a shout out to Hydro-Quebec, because thanks to Hydro-Quebec I get all the electricity in this smartphone to do this work and put it on that Quebec, Montreal on the map on YouTubers of Montreal, Quebec, or Canadian North American, for the collective North American civilization thereof, and of course for Montreal, a province here of which I'm part of, a Quebec, a Canadian North American who lives with this neurodivergence, and sometimes it's expressed just before, you know, I was in the store, and I gotta give a shout out to my anonymous friend who gifted 2 books related to autism and Asperger's, especially one book which was rented and had to give it back, but it was 4 times that I read it. It's called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. So the appreciation of the Asperger's syndrome is consequentially the appreciation of the Asperger's syndrome is, of course, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is one of those books which helped me undergo a understanding of how my difference sometimes is open for vulnerabilities vis-a-vis certain levels of being involved in the neurotypical world. So I gotta give a shout out, because Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is one of those books which opened my eyes towards my own vulnerabilities as a Aspie, as somebody who is neurodivergent and who lives with these characteristics which are part of the Asperger's, also known as HFA. So to give you a concrete example, I was looking at some objects at the store, mega store, and I was bringing them close to my bed just to check where was it made and any other details that I can find on the labels for like 44 seconds, very close to my face. So if you see somebody doing that in the store, you might think it's weird, awkward, and strange, but yeah, that might be an Aspie, that might be one of my fellow Aspies who is living in the neurotypical world and who expresses his Aspiness unawares of others' criticisms or volitions or intentions, to how the perception of that act is made from a neurotypical perspective, which is that we are of course organized and of course seeing on the details, on the perspective manner, of course on the details, to get it on the go for the salutations of all the projections of the neurotypical world, which is vis-a-vis us, the neurodivergence, the 0.44% small tiny community. You know, we're not a lot of people in the world. In North America, we're less than 1%, less than half a percent. The approximation of the Aspie population is quoted as 0.44%. So here I am, calling all willingly loving to support the implementation of my Trinity theories, the dream, the dancing goddess, and the dragon kingdom. That is something which we have to implement. That is something which we have to salute. That is something which we concordantly have to say that most of my work revolves around what I call the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. And you know me, from now on, it is 29th of July. It is either friends with benefits or reciprocally vice versa, pledge your allegiance. I don't will to waste nobody's time. The three main problems that us Aspies encounter: one, the lack of friends. I don't will to have many friends, just friends with benefits, and either or pledge your allegiance. And the other problem we Aspies have, which is totally unacceptable for such a tiny small fraction of the population of as a community, that there is very high unemployment. It stands at 80%. And because of this weirdness, bizarreness, we Aspies have trouble with long-term employment. Sometimes it can be a few months, 4 months, 3 months, a few weeks, a few months, a few weeks, a month, etc. And myself, I had many jobs, especially during COVID, but maintaining those jobs long term has been more problematic. And the other problem is, of course, the high depression and suicidal rate. And I was depressed and suicidal for a few days, as I am here in my own neighborhood. Nothing that I will to go back to, making that clear statement that it's always advancing for today and for tomorrow in a clear manner, which we are consequentially and prudently involved in such a habitual sphere of becoming always immersed in the neurotypical world, and more or less degrees, at more levels of interaction required than others, and more work or cooperation on certain levels of the world where we are, of course, good at. But the problem is high depression and suicidal rates. The unemployment rate, as I stated before, for my fellow Aspies, it stands at 80%. 80% of the population of Aspies, which is a tiny fraction of the population, is unemployed. So that is totally unacceptable. It is really unacceptable. 80%. Can you imagine 80%? That's 4 out of 5. The other problem is high depression and suicidal rates, which stands at around 9 times higher than the neurotypicals. And I was depressed, suicidal for a few years, and what got me out of being depressed and suicidal was crossing Canada coast to coast. When I crossed Canada coast to coast in 2017, that made me come out of being depressed and suicidal, and that's how we're gonna get rock and roll with that loving, and we're gonna get it for that drill. And of course, that point event in my time in summer 2017, that is, of course, what got me out of depression. In August, I went, of course, to British Columbia, Vancouver, and then, of course, in Halifax, September 2017, I went into Halifax, Nova Scotia. So that event, point event in my life, made me realize how many things we have here in common to see, to do. And so I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow communities, Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans, and from here in my own neighborhood. And I moved, I thought it was 2016, but supposedly I moved in 2015 here. And 2015, I used to live over there in a small underground basement, a few that way, not so far away from here. In a small underground type of prison type of cell. It was like a small prison cell, not literally, of course. It was an underground basement, but it was full of mold, black mold, whitish type of mold, reddish, green, lots of MOLD. So I don't know, because my memory, you know, I have trouble accessing my memory prior to spring 2014. So I don't know if I was doing lots of hard drugs before spring 2014. I don't do now. I live an active fitness lifestyle, although cannabis is legal here, and once in a while I smoke a legal one, but very rarely. As a matter of fact, I still have cannabis, which I purchased about 3.5 years ago during COVID. And of course, sometimes alcoholism, too much alcoholic beverages, and maybe I was prior to spring 2014 an alcoholic and I drank too much alcohol, or because of traumas. I live with plenty of scars on my body. When 2014 spring is before spring 2014, I have trouble accessing memories like RA retrograde amnesia. And of course, I remember being attacked by surprise, fell on the concrete, hit my head, vicious surprise attack by surprise, vicious surprise attack. I fell, hit my head on the concrete, and had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder. And of course, have to be saying, of course, that of course had that dislocated right arm and shoulder, and of course due to that dislocation, that arm on the shoulder of course is something which I had it dislocated, on the go, and that's how I got, and that's how I got to get that rock and roll. So due to the fact that I had that dislocated shoulder, is something which I have to be concomitantly to the fact that we have to get doing on that left right Z, and that's how we got to get doing with that, and that's how we got to get. I went to the Jewish General Hospital, so I was bloodied up. I was bloodied up. I fell in my head. So that's what it is, and I was bloodied up. I had a fell, hit my head on the concrete, and had the dislocated right arm and shoulder, and went to the Jewish General Hospital, was cracked back, and I was put on some meds, and those meds kind of put me like in a coma type of state for a few days. I have to retrieve the archives because I don't exactly know what there was prescription, because it was years and years and years ago. Like my memory, I have a good memory of the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years, but just before, spring 2014 is a bit blurry, on the blurry side. But here I am now, Hakala, Montreal, joyous, but parallel to joyous, content, happy, and getting this big backpack on my back to get that workout, heading back to my new headquarters. I'm also financially stressed, and gotta salute, because I talk too much a little bit about myself. I gotta put myself in solidarity as the people's artist, athlete, androgynous, pansexual, who lived many past lives, many incarnations. Even sometimes I was a priestess of ancient Egypt, and priestess Pythia, who orator, the great Rithria to Lycurgus. And right here to the firefighters, I just saw the passing of the firefighters going, of course, west. To the firefighters, love, LOV. To the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the grocery store clerks now. Those who change some diapers in the daycares. Those who flip some hamburgers, cheeseburgers, making that sausage, making that bread. Always important to note, construction workers who build these buildings here, which are kind of newish. They kind of started in the past 4 years, and always for the train conductors, railway conductors, the truckers. Thousands of truckers on the road now carrying, and the grocery store clerks, warehouse workers, and the dock workers, crane operators, all those involved in the food distribution, warehouse workers, store clerks. That's how we're gonna rock and roll for them, for the workers. And last year myself, I survived on 11,000 because I didn't officially apply to get special financing for Asperger's, because it's considered in some parts a disability, but of course it has its fortes. But the problem is we are less able in social communications and social interactions. We're less able. We're not that able in social interactions, social communication, social understanding of social dynamics. And the problem is also due to our special interest, which of course are hyper-focus, also known as obsessive interest, but it doesn't render any justice to do and utilize the terminology of obsessive. We have routines, ritualized routines, and for me it's the Holy Trinity 24/7 every day, hours and hours and hours a day. Daily routines is dedicated to fitness, sports of fitness, marching or dancing, because dancing is my favorite sport, along with rock and roll. Rock and roll 24/7 for the truckers on the road. The bakers, the butchers, the nurses, the doctor. Drop your head up to rock and roll. On the road up in the sun, that you see, that's the one. And of course, parallel to rock and roll, it's geopolitical theorizing. I'm an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and development of geopolitical strategies for the North American Collective, of course, for the North American Collective. And I am a Quebecer, Canadian North American, as much as I know international affairs of the North American civilizational complex. I rest that I be, and I am. Don't know when I got that tatted up. Canada, I always have my flag on me, open carry that flag 24/7, and I don't remember getting personally any of the tats. It must have been, all of them must have gotten them before spring 2014, because my memory is like a blackout, for spring 2014. It's just hard to remember my life. So I just remember moving. I thought I moved in 2016, but supposedly, according to records, it's 2015 July. So basically, of course, it's celebrating 10 years since I moved from over here so I lived in a small basement, small underground basement. very small, tiny. It's like a prison cell, I guess. I served my time, and I have these flashes of trauma, and now I live, of course, with the discordium. To be on the go for the plateau is sometime, we gotta get to get it on the go, and meditations on the simulation that we live in, and the environment which I lived was a small underground room off St. Temple. Was a small basement. Even the toilet, the bathroom was kind of in the room, and the kitchen there's no real kitchen. Very small. I'm grateful for where I live now, although it's still small for me to have friends over. I can't entertain. I can't have open house. I can't have friends over. I can't entertain. I can't do any of those things where I live now. And I'm all about work. If you want to be friends with benefits, Adrian Hanna Dragon, still got to pay that money to change my name because I died during COVID. COVID for me was hardcore. In 2020, between mid-February and mid-March 2020, I thought I was going to die. I had COVID. I got 3 vaccines, and I call all to please, open carry the disinfectant, and of course, please do peruse and do, of course, not waste food. Do not waste food. And of course, that is just the situational awareness. I'm going to go on the other side as we are here, but of course, it's something which we have to be committed about and concordant about to get all the appellations of all our North American civilizational complex, where we are fundamentally and in essence and fabricated on, and of course concomitant about and loving about, and of course going on the discernment that physical fitness and keeping the protocols of COVID is something, of course, which is fundamental, because we got bacteria, germs, and microbes. We got bacteria, microbes, and germs, and that's all we got: bacteria, microbes, and germs, and we have to disinfect. And that's something which we have to disinfect on the constant things. And here we are, always how my brain works now, due to the fact that I'm crossing this highway, this bridge. Always got to put this bridge concomitantly and in essence and in the point, of course, to be on the side of the truckers, and of course how I stipulate all the energies, and all my mental faculties are directed now to this point event in my life, whence I analyze it and I integrate it in the geopolitics and in the geopolitical arena where we are today. Gonna press a little bit of the button here. So the geopolitical arena where we are today, and we're concomitantly, of course, keep in mind that I am an independent geopolitical theoretical honest and theorist. I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019. I had predicted what's happening now back in 2019, October, November. I predicted that there's gonna be an international conflagration, and for much of what's happening now and has been happening for the past 3.5 years, especially since 2022 February, is unfolding across and in a parallel manner to my predictions, and my predictions were concomitantly, of course, on the side of the things that we have, of course, going to have. That was in the future, from that point perspective, a conflagration of World War III in a manner, of course, that was due to the fact that many unresolved conflicts from the 20th century, especially the Cold War period, were not fully resolved. And of course, those conflicts were not fully resolved in an equilibrated manner. And of course, now we have this geopolitical situation, of which, of course, we are close to World War III, if now World War III has not even perhaps began, but maybe, of course, it has began in a simultaneous manner. Even now, as I go home, of course, it is possible that Taiwan invades China, or correction, vice versa. Taiwan is being invaded by China. It'd be quite surprising, of course, if it would be a Taiwanese invasion with the USA of mainland China. That would quite be a surprise, but nonetheless, Taiwan can be invaded by China. So now that I'm crossing here in my own neighborhood, and I situate this point event in my life, where of course I integrate all the trucks, all the truckers, all the trucks going east, west, north, south, in the point accorded in this event, meaning going towards sunset 29th of July, that of course we have the manifestation here of the highways, and thus the points of transportation, and thus the infrastructure, and thus the logistics, yes, and thus the supply chains, because I don't know that truck what's carrying. It's going south, maybe it's going towards the US, and if we're about to get hit on another tariff with 35%, that's gonna be again on the problematic side. So me as an intellectual, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, who is androgynous, pansexual, you get that 50-50. Ain't no negotiation there, 50-50, as I am a Republican, Democratic Republican, centrist, pro-labor and love, universal revolutionary centrist, because my centrism is public-private partnership tied in, of course, with also the health and the aspects of the health for the individual and for the collective, and myself as an individual sovereign citizen who now has the responsibility to stay a little bit on the right side, just like driving, because I got a big backpack. And I got another bag for my fellow citizens who are coming towards me to get myself, to make them some space. Because in the public I have added responsibilities, duties and obligations which I don't have under the normal circumstances if I would have stayed home. So of course that is compromise which we got, and we got to get on that go now. It's just something which we have to understand fully. In the public I have added responsibilities, duties and obligations, which I don't have at home, right? So now I have added, and you have added, and we all have, as individual part of the public domain sphere, we have added responsibilities, duties, and obligations. And my fundamental dancing goddess and dragon kingdom is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership across the collective North American civilizational complex. And I got a bit on that heavy bag, and I'm on my fitness journey. Somebody else might be on their fitness journey starting now. Don't wait until tomorrow. And I don't know how my fellow trucker, I'm not a trucker myself, but I sing for the truckers, for the workers who, you know, make some minimum wage, some $20 an hour, some 25, some, you know, less than 40. If you're a millionaire, billionaire, give some charity if you can. But the vast majority of both Canadians or my brothers in the USA are now struggling financially, myself including. My only struggle now, stress now, is really economic, financial. But August all due comes, I'm gonna be able, of course, to pay my rent. So that is something which we have to get collective about. That's how we gotta get collective about that situational aspect. And of course we gotta be memorative and commemorative about all the situational complex of which we are involved in a manner. You're welcome. I would advise my fellow cousin to just march with the bike, not go on it, but I heard he kind of clicked the alarm, and I looked and I heard and see he said thank you. He said thank you. So that's always appreciating, and that's always something welcome, because we live together, and I understand. And sometimes, you know, I can be rude with my rock and roll, but I cultivate politeness, and if it's reciprocal, because, you know, I learned a lot about how Aspies, we can be weird and sometimes too direct and honest because of these brain mutations, and we don't mean to offend, it's just how our brains works. And Aspies, we have mutations of the brain at the micro level, and it's not sure what causes Asperger's, HFA, high functioning autism, is not clear. It's not clear. It could be part hereditary, part biologically, part hereditary, and part biological, hereditary, or hereditary, biological, that is genetic. So it could be a combination of genetic factors, biological factors, and environmental factors. It could be both. It's inconclusive. What is known is the characteristics, again, not the symptoms. I am not a disease. We're not mentally ill Aspies. We're just different and odd from the neurotypical perspective due to these mutations of the brain. And yes, in certain things we will be less able of the socializing nature and sphere. Sometimes it can be more difficult, and sometimes we can be direct and ask some questions that might seem odd and focus on some weird details and have weird mannerisms with the hands and the bodies. And we also have the subconscious in us, you know. I always say I'm open to the possibility that I have, unfortunately, subconscious discriminations for other human beings, but I don't like violence. That would be ethically and morally as much on the part to, of course, not, if I'm in a position of power, whether X, Y, Z, to not discriminate against my fellow beings, human beings, because the life constitutes the life force, and of course then we have the equality of the life forms, and then we have whatever the ethics and the morality is in parallel to the individual sovereign citizen, and whatever the work involved at multiplicity of levels at the macro or the micro level, again, to render justice or economic dictums or economic love or whatever the case may be, you know, to getting on the go with that. And that's something which we have to be just mindful about, you know, on a daily basis as we interact with each other, and we interact with our fellow human beings, that we are different as aspies, and this difference sometimes is very marked in many ways, that we have these problems with employment, you know. So employment can be problematic, you know, for an aspie, you know. Employment can be problematic for fellow aspies, and that's what we do, and that's why we gotta get some water here. Oh yeah. Yeah, so that's just the privilege of civilization, you know. The privilege of civilization is drinking water there. Drinking water. And of course, the privilege of civilization is just having the access, you know. Having the access to that potable water. What a beautiful garden here. Gotta congratulate it. Look at that. So having potable, drinkable water. That is just the privilege of civilization. And that is just the privilege of civilizational complex and how we interact. And those yellow flowers really are gorgeous. Wow, look how beautiful, you know me. I love yellow flowers, and that just quadruples my smile. Like those 4 big ones there. Such a nice, big, long flowers, and that's all we have, and that's what we do, and that's how we gotta get that rock and roll, you know. It's always and all the time as we appellate with the congrusiveness and the meaning, the well-being of the situational awareness, which we are, and we have to be on all the remission side, and we gotta make it on those situational awareness of where we are today and where we are as individual citizens, as individuals part of a collective, as individuals part of the society, and as aspies or neurodivergence aside. Let me see that beautiful sunset. Oh yeah, I'm gonna cross the street brutally and go get it in the sun. That's what I love, and just gonna turn a bit and salute my Publik king. A little of that sun salutations. That's it, and I guess tomorrow the heat wave ends. Tomorrow getting an end of that heat wave. Another one starting over the weekend. So we got that plurality of a heat wave, and we got heat wave after heat wave. As soon as this summer, I don't mind it at all. Actually, it's not something that personally bothers me or influences me in a negative manner. I do just hydrate, and gonna hydrate every stop until I reach my headquarters, passing through my own neighborhood here. Nothing that I will to go back to once again. It's just, I remember moving 2014. 2014. 2014. 2014, you know? Spring 2014, so that's just life, you know? And life, I guess, sometimes it hits us, as it has hit me as an N.A.C.W.P. Well, the problem, 3 problems we N.A.C.W.Ps face are lack of friends. From now on, friends with benefits only. Please, please, please understand. Friends with benefits only. High unemployment, 80% though, 4 out of 5. 80%, it's 11 times higher than you, the 99%ers of the neurotypical world, with which we gotta build bridges constantly, daily, on a short-term, long-term, and the high suicidal and depression rates. A house like this, I could split 50-50 with my anonymous friend. Any house anywhere in Montreal, that'll be good, and that is something which, of course, we have to be conclusive about. And so, traverse here, and this is a one-way street here in my own neighborhood. Once I will not to go back to anything, because I certainly cultivated, and after I got out of my depression, which lasted a few years, for a few years after moving, you know, I just was depressed, suicidal, and N.A.C.W.Ps, it's 9 times higher for N.A.C.W.Ps due to all other problematics of isolation. But I've been good for the past years, and I survived COVID. I take nothing for granted. I thought I was gonna die, mid-February 2020 until March, and it was like death, pestilence, and disease, and I got triple vaxxed, and I keep to the best of the ability the protocols, hygienic protocols, you know, to the best of the abilities, you know, the hygienic protocols, and consequently beautiful flowers there as we have, and we get that endeavors to consequently and intermittently be aware of all the circumstantial world that where we live in now, where we are interacting with the nature and civilization, and the fact that I have to the best of my abilities, and you as well, it's a reciprocal matter. We have to build those bridges together. I'm now gonna go into a subject that's my topic, my domain, my kingdom, because N.A.C.W.Ps, we have special interest, and unfortunately, yes, those special interests, we are super focused routines, daily routines and daily rituals where we are fully immersed in working, studying, or being engaged in those special interests. And my trinity of special interest, aka obsessive interest, but utilizing the word obsessive doesn't render me any justice to do so to myself as an N.A.C.W.P or other fellow N.A.C.W.Ps, because we can have meaning, purpose, and joy when we're engaged in those special interests, whether by working, studying, or whatever activities it is. That is our special interest. My holy trinity is sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing, I love dancing. Although fitness and sports in general. Sports and fitness, dancing, rock and roll, and of course, geopolitics. But now we're just gonna forget other things, and we're gonna focus not on my mystic spiritual beliefs of reincarnations. And yes, I was born a man and woman. I was born in the USA thrice, both 70-76, once as a woman, twice as a man. When I was born as a man, served 2 times. Double trouble in the same United States Army, 2 different wars, same US Army. You heard that correct, served in the United States Army in 2 different wars, post 1776. 2 different wars, same United States Army, post 1776. So now I will to discuss geopolitics. You have to also leave some baggage at the door, and keep in mind that I'm an independent and original geopolitical thinker, analyst, strategist, and theorist. thinker, analyst, strategist, theorist, analyst, strategist, and thinker. So those 4 words as related to what I am as when it comes to the world, the universe of geopolitics. I am an independent geopolitical thinker, analyst, theorist, and strategist. But my strategies are mainly and mostly for what I call the North American Collective. Also, furthermore, for the NATO complex, because much of my philosophies, theories, fundamental theories and protocols and initiatives are for the North American complex, Canada, United States, binational primarily, and then furthermore for the NATO complex, right? So other things I don't know. Gotta salute the firefighters. Salute the firefighters, LOV. Please give some 1% of the gross domestic products and the gross domestic income from the movies across Canada and United States for the firefighters, 1% for the public workers changing the aqueducts and the sanitation workers, 1% for the rehabilitation of the post-Texas floods and post-flooding in New Jersey and post-all wildfires in Canada, and 1% for general emergencies for the future. That should be a principle from our entertainment industries to correlate and give some of those respectively. Look at those beautiful yellow flowers just putting a big smile in my face right there in the corner. You know I love those yellow flowers that you see. So back to 2019 now. I predicted what's happening now. So my prediction has been multi-layer, semi-intellectual, philosophical, cosmopolitan, scholarly, in-depth analysis of the situation up to that point in time. But to summarize it, one of the main issues was that there were lingering 20th century conflicts, especially during the Cold War, which I've specialized, that these conflicts were not fully resolved, and these conflicts were going to restart. We're going to restart in the 21st century. In the 21st century. We're going to restart in the 21st century. And of course, we're going to restart in the 21st century. And that's what's happening from the most part across the North American collective and across the world, right? These conflicts, which you see now, Russia, Ukraine, another beautiful yellows, conflicts in Russia, Ukraine, these conflicts date from the 20th century, especially from the Cold War period, right? Because Russia, Ukraine were together in the USSR. They were together in the USSR. Israel, Palestine, or Israel Hamas is an institution which was founded in the 80s during the Cold War period. Taiwan and China is another conflict which is unresolved from the 20th century again, from the foundations of the People's Republic of China, October 1949 by Mao Zedong. That's what it is, and that's what it is with that. That's what we have to get going, to get doing on that, So that is just consequentially which we have to be prudent about. And hold on, what is that black dot? What is that black dot in the sky? Is that what I'm seeing? What am I seeing there? Oh, that is somebody's. Oh, that is a. Okay, that is a man, human made. It's like a dragon. Okay. It's not a missile. It's not an ICBM. Although in theory, the ICBM is trying to turn my head left and right. In theory, the ICBMs can reach us, in theory, the ICBMs from Russia can travel all the way here, right? In theory, of course. In theory, they can travel. In theory, they can travel 12,000 kilometers. So that from Moscow, Russia to Montreal is 8,500. So they can even go further, even if they're shot from Moscow or if they go close to the borders with Belarus or Ukraine, that's 100 more kilometers and miles that they get, because Moscow is a bit deeper from the border with Europe, right? Think about from the border with Europe, right? With the western part of Russia, not the eastern part. Although they have launch capabilities because of the trains, which are pretty much on the trains, and that's what they are, pretty much on those trains with that. And that's what they got to get consequentially in the prudent things, and the ability, of course, to strike Montreal. It's a capability which is technically possible, right? Because they can travel along beautiful garden. Although I think those are not real flowers, but quite cute nonetheless. And these 4 pots with the same flowers that are 1, 2, 3, 4. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Kind of cute how they're aligned. And see how my Aspie brain works. I'm now calculating if the measure from that pot to that pot is co-literal, co-equivalent, and the same measure between that pot and that pot is approximately the same measure as that pot between that pot and that pot. So my Aspie brains are a bit weird like that. Sometimes we just have these flashes of mathematical calculations. So in my mind, I was actually had a flash that they seem kind of co-equivalent in meters, that they have an equidistance, and that there was a certain beautiful symmetry between them. So I guess that's a bit of an Aspie traits, characteristics. Again, not symptoms of Asperger's, because we are not mentally ill and we're not a disease, eh? Please, 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 please. And so the characteristics involved in all the plurality of our involvement of the dynamics, which is now the topic of discussion, is geopolitics. That, of course, the ICBMs can reach us here in depth, and of course can reach us in depth, and we're exposed to that and vulnerable to ICBM strikes, the whole island, Montreal. That's why we need to get on the Golden Hawk Dome together via my trinity of theories, the DRT, the debt refusion theory, and the CIT, citizen integration theory, and the DRT, the debt refusion theory, and the co-equivalent of whatever's the appellation of all the instrumentalities which we have for our collective self-defense, and of course beyond. Beyond. So due to the markings and due to the phenomenons of being involved in all the characteristics and all the situational complexities. When it comes to geopolitics, that is my kingdom, my domain, And so because it is my kingdom, my domain, it is something which you have to correlate it, and you have to get some further understanding of the words, the phrases, and the principles that I'm going to espouse, especially in relation to my bipolar strategy, my bipolar geopolitical strategy for the total TBDD, total benevolent dominance and dominion of the North American collective by the imperial fusion of Canada and the United States. Again, when I use that words in that context, bipolar geopolitical strategy has nothing to do with the psychiatric condition known as bipolarity, right? It has nothing to do with the bipolar psychological condition in any sense whatsoever, right? There's just no sense whatsoever. It has nothing to do with beautiful sun, the Pope, the King. Beautiful, beautiful sunset. Started now. It's gonna be for an hour. Just wanted to check that out. So it has nothing to do with psychology, with psychiatry, with with psychological issues or psychiatric issues. This has nothing to do whatsoever with psychology or psychiatric. The psychological or psychiatric condition known as bipolar disorder or bipolarity, but it has everything to do with geopolitics. We're not discussing psychology or psychiatry. Little dogs barking a lot, eh? Little dogs. He's still barking. He's still barking. He's still barking, the dog. I can't pet them much, because petting them too much, I can't pet them at all, actually. I can't pet them at all because I get allergic reactions, and if they're not poodles, then I can't really pet them. So that is just something which we have, and that is something just we have to mark our well-being and our characteristic things which we have till the end. But poodles I can pet, and I'm just gonna circumvent my. Well, don't have to take that, but that's appreciated nonetheless. I was gonna go around the car for my auntie there to play safely with the dog, because I realized I am marching steps, and I'm in the public, and I just gotta make that loving kindness gesture for my fellow aunties and uncles and citizens here who are involved in the public sphere as I'm involved now and doing this work. So back in 2019 again, I predicted an international conflagration. I got proof. So I have proof for this statement. I have the video, I have it online work. I have proof for this video. What I said is I have proof. I have proof, of course. Gotta watch the cars here, and that's what we got, and that's how we're gonna get that drill and turn the head left or right, and we gotta get consequential for that, in all the aspects of civilization as we are endeavored to slow down a bit, because you gotta watch you like a hawk also, because you got that cars who might malfunction and the brakes might not function and the citizen driver might press the accelerator, and those are things which of course can happen on the integral level, of all the things which we do and all the things which we are engaged in on the level, of course, with the interactions with the fellow cars where we cross the pedestrians. And look at that. Isn't that just super? Just puts a big smile. My smile just quadrupled. That's what I love. Beautiful flowers there, and beautiful flowers on that, and beautiful flowers on the go, and beautiful flowers for now, and beautiful flowers right there, and that's what it is, and that's what it is for those flowers. And yes, oh yeah, delicious, ice creamy. Oh man, wow, what a great job. That's a high plus 9. 8.5 plus. 8 plus. So back to geopolitics now, as I will admire the coming gardens. In 2019, I predicted an international conflagration. I also created a workout training program system designed, made, and created to go hand in hand with such a scenario, such a prediction as the aforementioned what I just said. This international conflagration that I said was coming on the horizon. I gave a timeline, a frame of about 7 years or so, So several levels, and another beautiful one. So basically, of course, I have predicted the situation now that's transpiring now. In a general sense, what a beautiful garden again. And with those yellows there, this tops up 8 plus, 8 plus, 8 plus, and that's how we have to be doing on that, and that's how we have to implement my trinity of theories, my trinity of theories, of which we have to consequently implement them as soon as possible, especially when it comes to the DRT's implementation, standing for the debt refusion theory, due to our growing economic, financial concerns and pressures which we have, including myself. My only stress now is really financial and economic, and always got to get it for that economy and economic pressures which we are allotted to have in the well-being of our city here and our individual and the collective North American civilization, that we are facing very much big problems on the economic financial horizon, which can of course also happen and occur in a level and integrally within the sphere of our individual and collective economic domain. As you can see, the world as we knew it for many decades has really ended in the past 3.5 years, especially vis-a-vis the emergence of BRICS. Now, if you want to have a geopolitical discussion, you have to know this term. As a philosopher, this is my concoction, my theory, philosophies, the North American civilizational complex. Of course, it refers to Canada, United States, and that the North American and beyond, Mexico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba has a paradox in it, but of course in the islands. We are an emergent civilizational complex, which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. So those two things you have to concord, and of course you have to appellate, and of course know integrally, of course, of what they are about. That we are not divorced, but we are distinct from Western civilization. So that is something which, of course, one has to completely, fully immerse in fully understanding and grasping as an idea, a truth, a geopolitical reality. We are an emergent civilizational complex, and we have been emerging ever since the 1950s. Ever since the 1950s. After post-Second World War period, after the Second World War, we have been emergent. And this emergence has, of course, led us consequently to where we are now. And that's why I make this statement, a geopolitical statement: the king is absent. My fellow brothers and sisters Canadians, it's time for the Republic, and it's time for the Imperial Republic and the fusion of Canada and the United States thereof via my trinity arteries, the CIT, the RT, and the DFT via LOVE. Because the empire marches for the strong, the brave, the free. Because Canada, we're the true North, strong and free, and we're going to fuse the North with the South, the 50 and the 13. 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories for the super state of the super states. The greatest states, you bet, where we're going to add 13. Granddaddy Trump, and you know I don't support Donald Trump. I would have voted by Kamala, but paradoxically, Donald Trump opened the invitation for the immersion of Canada into the what's called the perpetual union. It has roots in, of course, the development and emergence of the United States of America, and of course the Articles of Confederation and the creation of the United States as we know it for the developments and the bills and all the constitutional amendments thereof, what's called perpetual union. So we're gonna sign, let's do it, September 11th, my dream, the dancing goddess Dragon Kingdom. We're gonna sign, of course, the perpetual Imperial Republican Union. The perpetual Imperial Republican Union. The perpetual Republican Union. So that's how we're gonna sign the perpetual Republican Union together. So this new accord is, of course, something which we're gonna do together in a civilizational complex, and that's all we're gonna have to be doing on that, and we're gonna have to get it on the go and do it as soon as possible for the North American characteristics, and that's what we're gonna have to implement on the left and on the right and in the middle on those, of course, war characteristics and special operation for, of course, the left side of things, and we gotta get drilling on that for the go, and that's how we gotta get drilling, you know, for the LOV and for those who are collectively with us, and who are coming to join us in the North American Collective, and of course to implement the sphere of our protruding civilizational complex to the next imperial level via my DRT theory. I don't want to be too academic and craterocratic, but suffice it, of course, to say without being too craterocratic and academic that, of course, that is just some things that we have to do without being craterocratic or academic in the social sphere of which we have the interactions. And I gotta give a beautiful concomitant appellation here. See that we have this big buildings here. What a beautiful architecture, what a beautiful architecture, what a beautiful architecture here, and the architectural style and the colors is just such a beauty. I wish I could buy the Soul building and all my allies and armies, we can have that dragon army, dancing goddess army with it. So back to the Imperial Republic's fusion. I'm now gonna make another statement. I'm now gonna make another statement, and that statement is, of course, the statement is that, and you have to say yes to this following statement, whether you're a Canadian Quebecer Canadian like yours truly, or my brothers and sisters in the US where I served in previous incarnations, past lives. Just read Through a Glass Darkly, and just read that Through a Glass Darkly, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get that rock and rolling, for the left and for the right, and for the butchers, the bakers, and the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, and the plumbers, the electricians. Think about it now, how many truckers on the road, carrying all those goods, imagine. I don't know how many, but there must be a few, There must be a few. There must be a few, a few thousand. So I gotta give a shout out to them as I do this geopolitical discourse, because they're gotta be included. And it's not just for the millionaires, billionaires, and those who work in the grocery store clerks, and the firefighters, the butchers, the plumbers, and the electricians, the welders. All those involved now, in all that production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, on the coast-to-coast, ocean-to-ocean train conductors, and, those plumbers, electricians, those flipping some burgers. Think about the flipping burgers now, and the cheeseburgers, and the creation of those foods, delivering of that food, and the public sanitation was going to pick up the garbage, the compost, the sanitation workers, the collective, the empire. We gotta get it on the go with that, and we gotta get on that appellation to getting on that certification, and we gotta have, of course, a little bit of that higher and lower variations of our inner beings with the whole collective, which also has higher and lower states of civilizational development, such as the rural and the urban. Don't think about it as a higher and lower as in a caste societal structure, but is in this is another theory. I'm going a bit theoretical in the geopolitical complexities, but of course is something where we have the domain, which is my domain, and so sometimes it could be a bit on the more academic, craterocratic side of geopolitics. So I'm gonna try to refrain and be as simple as or concise as possibly can. This following statement you have to say yes to, so you cannot say no to this statement. And this is the statement, so you can only say yes. What I'm about to say now. Us, Quebecers, Canadians, and my brothers and sisters in the USA, our main geopolitical interest when it comes to geopolitics and when it comes to foreign affairs, when it comes to foreign affairs, when it comes to foreign affairs, that is something which we have to appellate, when it comes to the appellation, of course, when it comes to the appellation, it is something which we have to constitute, and we gotta get it on that go and getting on the now, and so we gotta constitute a implementation of my Trinity theories, and that's how we gotta get on that drill, you know. So consequently, as it comes to the international relations part, the foreign affairs part, not the domestic internal affair part. Oh, spotted the flag. I got it on me. But my fellow Canadians and brothers and sisters in the USA, this statement is real geopolitics, and this statement has to be affirmed in the positive that it is so. You cannot argue with it, and it's not a no and it's not maybe. Our main interest as Quebecer Canadians, when it comes to the world of foreign affairs, our primary interest in the number one place, it is to have the best, most cordial relations with our brothers and sisters in the USA. In the USA, you know, with our brothers and sisters in the USA. That is just something which we have to commend fully, as of course all our civilizational aspects are the protruded side of things, and that's how we have to get doing like that, and that's how we have to get on the drill, you know, on the drill. And of course concomitantly and in the side of the things where we are fully on the LOVE also. Our main interest is to have the best cordial economic, financial, commercial, defense, security, social, cultural relations with each other when it comes to external policies for both Canada and the United States. You cannot argue with that statement. If you argue with it, then we're not in real geopolitics, and I could use the German school of geopolitics, real geopolitics, but of course it has nothing to do, because it's my Dragon's geopolitics for the North American Collectif kind of school, new school of the 21st century, but a lot blended in the old school of the 20th century, or old school. I'm not discussing 17th, 16th, 15th, 18th century, because for me, really those centuries have no validity for today's environment. For myself, I'm speaking beautiful yellow, for myself. For some others it might have, but not for my geopolitical theorizing, analysis, developments of strategies, and of course thinking. Although I know history from ancient Egypt to today, from my perspective and my call to implement my CIT citizen integration to and the new 911 Dragon protocols for total security, total service, total defense is of course on the side, and the relations of course of our beings where we are of course fully integrated in the immersive aspect of our domain to get it on the go, and of course to transliteralize that the geopolitical events of the 20th century is what is most important for the 21st century. Although paradoxically there is still some who hold some grudges, some historical references to the 19th century. Myself, not myself as an individual, you know. I think that for advancement those shackles have to be thrown off. Look at that. Wow. Thank you, public workers. Really did a good job. I want to commend all who did this work here for me to enjoy it, and not just for me, but for you also. Wow. Isn't that just super cool in the public sphere? I guess that's part of geopolitics also, embellishing the embellishment of the public is also part of geopolitics, as I love myself to go in the public here in Hawk Island, aka Montreal, and see beautiful flowers such as those. It just enables my whole marching meditative state, and it brings me some joy. And beautification, the beautification of course of the social sphere, of the public sphere, is something which we continue to do, and in the Empire we're going to actually commend every week, every day in the different domains. Of course we have spring, summer, and of course autumn, because winter, we got that winter where it gets all embellishments by Mother Nature with ice and black ice and snow. So our main interest when it comes to the world, primary interest when it comes to the world of course of foreign affairs, not domestic internal affairs again. For both Canada and the United States, and this is reciprocal, it is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, social, cultural, security and defense relations with each other. Because and now I'm gonna give the realistic geopolitical and reasons for that statement. Of course, it is the fact that we are bound by a common historical past and a common destiny, future destiny, together with the United States and the North American Collective, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We got coast to coast, ocean to ocean, you know, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast. We got to the east, we got the Atlantic. To the west, we got the Pacific. So that is just the geopolitical realities and the geographical realities. And there's no way out of that geographical realities. That's what it is. So that is just the realities, and I gotta go get the hydration again because it's hot. So, and when I see this light, see, I meditate now from a geopolitical perspective about Hydro-Quebec, as I always sing for Hydro-Quebec, and the fact that we have Hydro-Quebec, we have the work which has been done, and the work which has been done in Hydro-Quebec is, of course, the confined instance of electricity which does not pollute. Is zero pollution, zero energy emission, and it's really coming from the dams, the hydroelectric dams. So that is a point. I hope this water works. Oh yes. Usually I recommend waiting a few seconds, usually about 10 or 15 seconds for the pipes to clear. For the pipes to clear, you know, for the pipes to clear in the fundamentals that the pipes were gonna be clearing, and of course the pipes can carry rust, can carry a little bit of dirt and stuff like that. So just wait and hydrate HYDRATE. And that is the theoretics and of course the dynamics of which we have to be doing in the side of these civilizational projects, of where we endeavor ourselves to be on the same level of statement and affirming and declaring that it is so. You cannot argue with that. Once you argue with that, you're in another sphere. You're not in the real geopolitics. You're more and more fantasies, right? The ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. To the east we got the Atlantic, to the west we got the Pacific. So that is something which you have to keep in mind, you know. Keep in mind. And keep in mind that that is just the reality of what it is transversely and in the trajectory of which we are appellated today. And yeah, look at these. Gonna have to sniff a bit, just gonna smell it a bit. Ah, good. Yeah, nice and done. That's what it is. And gonna cross the street here and actually the other place. So again, the statement is our main foreign affairs principle when it comes to each other, Canada and the United States, must be to orient all our policies to make that all policies are placing that geopolitical reality as the number one fundamental fact that we must have the best cordial relations with each other, reciprocal, whether economics, social, financial, cultural. I gotta applaud my fellow citizen who goes on a jog there on a hot heat wave such as this, and that's how we have to be encouraging that, and that's what I love, along with these yellow flowers here and quite beautiful breeze. So that's the reality. You gotta integrate that. Then we can advance. We're not gonna be at an impasse. Then we can advance. Otherwise, we're gonna be at an impasse geopolitically, and perhaps not in other things. We might both like the 49ers, and dancing is my favorite sport. If you love dancing and rock and roll, maybe we can agree on those other issues. But you have to say yes. And all our leaders, whether they're on the right, on the left, in the center, or center right, center left, those fives, I'm not addressing the far left and the far right here, and from a North American perspective again, from a North American dimensional geopolitical reality, that's how we have to be doing. So concomitantly and in essence, that is just the plurality of our reality, which is stated in that simple term that us geopolitically just the fact that we have the common geographical space which is encompassed by the two oceans. And this is applicable, this statement only applies to Canada and the United States, and the United States towards Canada. It does not apply to other countries, neither in Europe, neither in Africa, really, neither in the Middle East, paradoxically. You think about that, that is really the reality of our geopolitical realities. So once again, all our politicians, whether on the left, on the right, in the center, center left, center right, have to understand fully that our main interest is to have the best, most cordial relations when it comes to exterior policies with each other. With each other, you know? With each other, you know? With each other. That is just the reality, the geopolitical reality. That is not something which we can compromise on, that which we can negotiate. It's not negotiable. Our main interests when it comes to foreign affairs is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. Foreign affairs, not domestic. We're speaking about two different things: domestic affairs, internal affairs, and of course external affairs. External affairs. That is just the situation. You cannot correlate other things. You cannot dispute, you cannot argue, you cannot negate that statement. Once again, our main interest is to have the best, most cordial economic, financial, commercial relations with each other when it comes to our external, foreign, domestic relations. The primary interest when it comes to foreign affairs is to have the best relations with each other. That's it, that's all. Now we can advance to discuss my DRT, which we must discuss because it's consequential and part of the bipolar strategy for the North American Collective, which we have to be doing on that, and that's something which we have to appellate together in the place where we are as a future imperial force, and we're going to implement this geopolitical strategies, the bipolar geopolitical strategies, again not to be confused with the psychological psychiatric condition, but the bipolar as in the bipolar geopolitical strategies for the total BDD, total benevolent dominion and dominance of the world by the fusion of Canada and the United States into the imperial complex, and implementing by protocols, initiatives, philosophies such as the new 911 Toronto Protocol, which we must of course concordantly implement together, and especially implement together in the concordium of which we are now to fuse together through no strong and free in the land of the free and the brave. And we got to add some love into that, to love our butchers, love our farmers, love our firefighters, love our bakers, love our IT workers, love our plumbers, love those who do the change the daycare, change the diapers in the daycares, and to continue to do everything that we have been doing till this moment in time in the correlated aspect of the plurality of our well-being and our wellness and our fellow citizens, the individual and the collective, to of course concomitantly and have the plurality of something which we have together to make it for the short and the long term, and the 21st century specifically, something which we have to get in the 21st century specifically. I wonder how much is rent here, just by acknowledgement, because of course I'm not looking to move unless get a better place, but for now I guess it's gonna be I wanna cross to check out those flowers. Actually, that's my concern now, and I'm gonna cross after this car. Turn your heads left and right before you cross the street, and just want to take a look at these flowers because they look so vivid. This is a big one. Oh, I love it. I just love it smells up to here. I just love those vivid. It just puts a big smile on my face, quadruples my smile as well. And this is a big 8+ here. 8+, bravo. Even the vividness of the colorfulness of the flowers. Oh, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 there. I guess there's a 5th one in the back. Like bundles of this, and mixing with the white and the little blue ones. It's really rock and roll, and especially these little yellow ones. What a nice garden. Good job. Good job. Wow. So gonna now discuss the DRT, but once again, that statement you cannot negate. You cannot say no to, because all our leaders have to fundamentally agree to it, and not only agree fundamentally, but put the policies in practice so that all the foreign external affairs are directly those factoids to be getting on that level where our foreign affairs revolve around this principal fundamental interest that we have to have the best economic, financial, cordial relations with each other, first and foremost, as Quebecers, as Canadians. Then it comes the other sphere, for example, the NATO sphere. The sphere of NATO comes even after this NORAD relationship. Like, this is just fundamentally the thing which we have. The things which we have in the compromise and the concordium of which we have to appellate internally and integrally to so be of value and to so be of interest that is so fundamentally to, of course, get the trajectory and get it, of course, on the liveness of our capabilities of all our factorials, of which we might do after this statement that I've said, that our primary interest is to have the best cordial economic, social, dynamic relations with each other, is affirmed in the positive by a yes, right? Now to the DRT. The debt refusion theory is the solution. Why do I make the statement that the DRT is the solution? At least the solution from the perspective, not just the perspective, but the reality, the economic reality of today for many Canadians, many brothers and sisters in the USA. This is applicable reciprocally binationally for both Canada and the United States, because we are in an economic, financial, commercial crisis, the vast majority of the population. We have four main problems pressing on us. Don't tell me that this place closed. I used to order when I used to have more money, a lot from then. September? This place was never closed. This has been operating for like years and years and years here in NDG. Oh, I thought they were having some pamphlets, but no, that's their mail. There are not pamphlets to take, that's their mail there, but wow, usually they have some pamphlets. Oh, usually they're here to take. They're no more. Wow, I can't believe this place is... We are closed from July 7th, so they closed 22 days ago, July 7th, and may change sometime in September. Wow, I never saw that place closed. This place here has been open for like, I think 44 years, 50 years. This little place, I ordered a lot when I used to have more money, but their prices have remained quite steady. So, and the food was good in my taste, and they increased in the past 3.5 years. They increased by $2-3, but still okay. So now we have four main problems which are pressing us. The growing cost of rents. My rent has increased as well, but my rent, I'm gonna say that it perhaps have increased, of course, something which, by whatever the case may be on the increasing of the rent may be, that's what it is. And my rental increase has been, of course, for increase by 10, by $10 maximum. It could be between 6 and 10. I'm not going to disclose the number, but suffice it to say that I can't complain, because by my standards, and I think it's fair what my rent has increased by, because it's even below the maximum that they could have got. Below the standards that they could have got. Below the standards that... But below the standards, the maximum standards, the maximum law allows for a more increase, That's what we gotta get doing. So of course we gotta get it for the drill, we gotta get it for the now, we gotta get it for that on the drill side of things, we gotta get it for those lovebirds, and we gotta get it for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the grocery store clerks, and that's what we have to be doing, To get it on the love side of things, we gotta get those prudences, So that's what we have to be doing like that. That's what we have to be doing like that, and that's what we have to be doing like that, And we gotta get it on that drill, So it's something which we have to operate here. We gotta turn it on the go, So gotta make that prudent crossing of the street here, because sometimes they do not press the accelerator. They press the accelerator instead of the brake. So it's something which we have to be doing on the go, and something which we have to be doing on the now, and that is just something which you gotta be stating in the 100% co-equivalency. That safety in the public also has to be a great geopolitical interest, right? For fellow citizens' wellness in the public wellness. It is in our interest for our citizens and the public wellness as much as we can. That's why fundamentally my public-private partnerships are the way for today and for tomorrow. So four main problems. The growing cost of rent. So again, my rent has increased. I'm not going to say exactly by how much my rent has increased. I'm just going to say it's between 6 and 10. Because personally I can't complain. I believe and I know that it is within the acceptable norms for myself as an individual paying rent, an individual sovereign citizen paying rent. But the rents have increased for some way than they can afford. The growing cost of rents, the growing cost of living. Most of the things, even now, the chocolate that I used to get 3.5 years ago for 99 cents, $1, it has increased to 1.17 3 years ago. Then 3 years ago to it was 125, then 144, then of course it went up again to 198, now doubled. So it finally doubled. A chocolate bar from Switzerland. That's why I didn't buy it, and I'm gonna wait until it's 4 for 5, because sometimes it is, I don't know if they're still gonna put it, beautiful yellow flowers, 4 for 5, which is 125. But it more than doubled. I used to buy it at $1 very regularly just 3.5 years ago. And of course, before I used to buy it, of course, 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago. And that is just an increase of double. It doubled. The chocolate bar, 100 grams, it's imported from Swiss. It's a great value brand, but I can't believe it today. It's not really worst fears, because, I can go without that specific chocolate, because I love sweets and honey. I can reduce it, but it just increased, doubled the price. So even the milk, the butter, the oil, the eggs, everything is increasing. The beef, the chicken, everything is going up. Most of the things, not everything, but most of the things are keep increasing every day, every week. So the growing cost of living, of course, the growing cost of living, of course, is something which is increasing, is something which we have together to do. The growing cost of living, coupled with the growing cost of rents, coupled with the stagnation of the salaries. That's three. And in whatever order you want to put these four main pressing problems, the stagnation of the salaries, and of course the credit cards. Even now in Montreal, Hawk Island metropolis city where I reside, an island surrounded by a big river, somebody's swiping that credit card. Somebody's swiping the credit card. Somebody's swiping the credit card. Somebody's getting that credit card even maxed out. Now 4 credit cards maybe a citizen has maxed out. He's maybe thinking of getting a 5th one, but it wouldn't be prudent. Right? So increasing credit cards, record debt for both Canadians and the United States, record credit card debt, right? Those 4 record credit in whatever order, because for individuals it might vary, but overall, the pressing economic, financial, commercial matters for the vast majority of both Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the USA are these main 4. The growing cost of living, everything is increasing. The stagnation of the salaries, don't mention the inability to get a job, because I've applied, and mostly in the negative. And of course, the growing cost of rents, and the growing indebtedness, and the growing prices of everything. So, growing credit cards, debt, growing prices of everyday goods, the bread, the cheese, the bacon, the onions, stagnation of the salaries, and the stagnation of the salaries coupled with the stagnation of the salaries, growing credit card debt, stagnation of the salaries, growing credit card debt, and of course consequently the others is of course the rents increasing. So rents increasing, growing credit card debt, stagnation of the salaries, and the price of everyday living is increasing. Those 4 at different variations of levels. So there's no way, that's why I'm making the statement that there's no way out of the current financial economic situation but my DRT theory. But okay, there's another way, but it has to resemble in principle, fundamental principles, my DRT, the debt refusion theory. That's where I want to get and fully comprehend and understand this fact, right? That it has to resemble my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, in essence and fundamentally, as much as it can, right? It has to resemble my DRT theory, right? It just has to resemble my DRT theory. So now I'm going to explain it because it's the solution, and it has to be implemented once again binationally for both Canada and the United States. And keep in mind, it can happen tomorrow, eh? If the tariffs of 35% hit August 1st, we're in big trouble. Look at these beautiful reds. Wow, thank you, public workers. Hey, these are nice. Gotta thank you, public workers, and now I gotta check those yellows. So that is, thank you, public workers. That's pretty cool. I love it. I'm gonna be more joyous discussing the joyous solution of the DRT, which have to be implemented, and it's part of the bipolar geopolitical strategy for total TBDD, total benevolent dominance. I love it. Just love these yellow. Look at that. They grew so big. Just my whole perspective, and refreshes my whole march, my whole meditation, and it's really life. I really love it. Yellow flowers is my favorite, although red is my favorite color, like the shoes and like the hat, but of course it's yellow flowers which I love, such as these. So thank you. So we're gonna take, I'm now explaining the DRT, we're gonna take we're gonna implement it Canada, United States. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, Quebec, Canada, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're gonna convert all the public and the private debt into US dollars. Into US dollars, right? Into US dollars. All the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to add, of course, all the public and the private debt. We're going to add it to the United States dollar. To the United States public and private debt, that is. But we're going to convert our public and private debt, which is going to include my $10,000, because I don't have credit cards myself. I have a bank loan. I have a credit line. And of course, I have $10,000 in debt. I'm just going to check out this arch and go a little bit under it as I go towards the moon. So all the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. US dollars. Add it with the US dollar. Hey, kind of cool. A bit of color. Maybe some red, blue, green, green, green. Red and green and black and white. Black and white and red and green would be nice. Hey, the pillars and... But it's kind of cool. I don't know, it's kind of cool. It's an arch, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4 on one side. 1, 2, 3, 4 on one side. Yeah, I know that's just aspiness. Counting the things and even counting these. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2. So total of 10. And then 10 plus 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 10. 10 nails, right? 10 nails on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But each side has, oh, this side doesn't have. So it's only on one side then. See? The other side doesn't have. So the nails are only on one side. So we cannot add mathematically the 4 sides. Because if they would have been on the 4 sides, we would have added 10 times 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The thing has 4 sides. That's 40. And 40 times 4. That's 160 already. But it's 8, right? So it'd be 300 and... Right? 300 and... If it's 40 times 8. That's 40 times 8. That's 320 would have been. But it's not. It's just the nails are only on this side. So it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 nails. I don't know if you're following. Yeah, you just forget that. It's just aspiness. This is Asperger's for you. That's aspiness one-on-one, brothers and sisters. That's how my brain is divergent from you, the 99.56% of the population. But we got to build the small, big bridges and smaller bridges and medium-sized bridges and huge extra large bridges. We just have to do it. It's just aspiness, you know. It's just our brains have mutations, and you know, Aspi's got to be supported in those special interests. I'm just gonna cross the sea again. I'm just gonna cross the sea, that plateau there. A little bit of a public embellishment of the city, and that's what we have to be doing on that. And we gotta get it for them, those beautiful flowers, you know, to get it on the go and getting on the side of things where we are protruding to the analytics and back to the DRT. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000. We're of course gonna create a common bank. And we're going to add all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, to and with the United States dollar debt. The United States public-private debt, including our debt. But we're going to convert our debt to the debt of the year. We're going to create this new currency. And because my DRT theory creates, of course, integrates monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union, we're going to create the UE. Because remember, in my DRTT is integrated the MIT, the monetary integration theory, which is of course the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union, and we're gonna create the UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. U dot universal, E dot U dot exchange, U dot the UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. We're gonna create the UE based on the value of the US dollar. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The UE, the UE, the UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange is going to have the value of the US dollar. We're going to put an interest rate level of 10% only. It's going to be 10% only interest on the public debt. 10% interest on the public debt. We're not going to be able to have higher than 10%. 10% is going to be the principal. We can have lower than 10%, but not higher than 10%. So that is consequently something which we have to be on the prudent side, and of course to do it, of course, in all the consequential things where we have endeavored to so do together. I'm gonna get a little bit of more hydration. I'm gonna wait another seconds, about 10 seconds. So all the debt, public and private debt, We're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to add it with the US dollar, and that money is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank, and we're going to create the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. The Universal Exchange Unit is going to have the value of the US dollar, and of course that's what we're going to create, the implementation of my DRT theory, the debt fusion theory, which includes the monetary integration theory, is suffused with creating a new Imperial Republican Bank, a central bank for both Canada and the United States, and even Mexico if they will, of course, to enlarge it furthermore. Oh yeah, that's what I needed to continue the DRT and switch to the French. Thank you, public workers. Imagine this is the privilege of civilization right here. Privilege of civilization right here, man. And we're gonna save at least the world from Armageddon. Save the world from Armageddon. We're gonna save the world from Armageddon via the DRT, the debt fusion theory. We're gonna save the world from Armageddon via the DRT. We're gonna save the world from Armageddon, and of course, consequently, is something which we have to be prudent about. We gotta get it on the go, you know. It's something which it's a must, and consequently, we have no choice, really. We really have no choice, because we're on the verge of a public financial collapse. You realize that we cannot sustain growing prices of everything, growing stagnation of the salary, or stagnation of the salaries. Rents keep increasing, and the credit card debt, you cannot. People are more and more in debt, and the stagnation of the salary, we cannot. Beautiful garden, LOVE, +8 on that one. Just love it, love it, love it. Wow, what a nice garden. And I appreciate it. So we're gonna take all the public and private debt. We're gonna create this new currency, the Universal Exchange Unit, and we can establish it first for Canada and the United States. We're gonna create this UE. We're gonna get rid of the border, create a census, and see who's been living here since in the past 7 years to give some amnesty. Of course, we have to look at how many criminal conviction a person has had as citizen, because if you have had in the past 11 years since 2014, let's say spring, 44 criminal convictions, 44 criminal convictions, 44 criminal convictions. I had to appear also before a court, but it was just a little thing, you know. It's because Aspies were, it happens to Aspies without us knowing, which can just get us in trouble with for the judge, but it's not. I don't like violence. I just am for channeling. That's what we gotta get doing on that channeling. We're gonna mass finance citizens' fitness, mass finance citizens to work out, mass finance citizens to train, to exercise, and mass finance intra-imperial tourists, because we're gonna establish by the DRT this new currency, and we're gonna create two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army, aka the Imperial SSD Legion, only to serve coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Flag spotted. I always got that flag tatted on. Tatted on. For SSD only, my principles initiatives are mostly to fuse Canada and the United States and create the two complementary covenant institutions, which can be, of course, extended towards the NATO complex. Extended towards the NATO complex. Furthermore, but first for North America, get rid of the border, standardize the economy, mass finance fitness, mass finance social housing, and my brothers and sisters who some will and deserve their second, third, fourth chances. I'm beginning, I guess, this summer my fourth since first I moved. I thought it was 2016, but it was 2015. From that moldy place, I was depressed, suicidal. I crossed Canada coast to coast. In 2017, that event made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. A strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. And ever since then, I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. And that is what got me out of depression and being suicidal. That's what got me out of being depressed, out of being suicidal. So that's why we're going to mass finance tourism. We're going to implement my Operation Northern Scorpio based on my total mobile defense theory, the TMDT. When we add the fifth letter, the S, to the acronym, we cannot be discussed, divulged overly too much because by national security matters, I can only discuss it with fellows, high-ranking security apparatus members of the police and armed forces, David McGinty, President CEO of CSIS, Canadian Security Intelligence Establishment, and RCMP officers, high-ranking, and others, of course, members of the security apparatus, such as Pam Bondi, and, of course, Big Hexet, and that's how we gotta get rolling with, and Minister of National Security. That's how we have to get doing on that, and, of course, what's the other name? The other name for fellow Tulsi Gabbard. That's what we have to do, and that's how we have to appellate and implement the DRT. There is no way out of where we are. This is gonna save us from Armageddon. We're gonna create the Dancing Goddess Army, aka the Imperial Integrated League with it. The Imperial Integrated League, Imperial Integrated Dance League, that is, to dance for the environmental rehabilitation. And we're gonna build those 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. Those 44 tunnels, mass finance the rehabilitation of the criminal population, mass rehabilitate the criminal population. Of course, those brothers and sisters incarcerated, and that's how we're gonna have to be doing. A mass, of course, built the 44 tunnels, underground mass tunnels inspired by the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, and of course the other one, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, and the Montreal Underground Village, and the third one, paradoxically, I'm no fan support of Hamas, but Hamas built mass structures, and that's how it is with that, and that's what it is with the goal, to build those mass structures and implement it concordantly and in the affluence of course, that's what we have to be doing on the compromised situational effort, which we've got to endeavor to, of course, rebuild and get to public-private partnership, which includes Microsoft, Google, and Facebook, and all the big tech giants, and the BlackRock and Blackstone are two different financial institutions, and the NFL, NHL, MLB, and millionaires, billionaires for this dream to establish and do the Imperial Republic, get rid of the border, create the Dragon Army for security, service, and defense, pledge your allegiance, friends with benefits only. Mass rehabilitate the population. See how my brain now works. I look at this beauty. I imagine for defense purposes, strategies, how this, of course, can be. We can get a few hundred of these, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and of course to have the mass rehabilitation project, of course, to be able to do it. And of course this looks a bit like a tank, but of course it has purposes, but it's kind of good how it is jet black, and I'm kind of imagining what it is exactly. I don't know. It looks like it has nice lights in it. I'm trying to figure out what exactly it is, but it kind of looks cool. I could drive it a little bit, and kind of cool. And of course, what does it say? Design, and kind of cool. I just love it, and I envision it to be mounted as a defensive capabilities, a war machine for defense only, where of course you could mount it on in the back, and it's kind of super cool. I love it, what they've done to it. It's really nice. I just love that machine, and it's super cool. So nice, what a beauty. And I imagine it to build several hundred like that, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, aligned multi-cannons, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and get a total fortress, the Imperial Fortress, the Dragon Army, for total security, total service, total defense, and mass invest the billions and the trillions for the rehabilitation of the criminal population in order to build those 44 mass tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, where it can even guest hundreds and millions of fellow citizens, the youth especially, to survive in those 44 tunnels and in case of a thermonuclear war. So we have to start building inconsequential and imprudence, of course, to all our terminologies and all our dictums. So here I can wait a bit, maybe wait for the next one, Maybe wait for the next one. Just gonna stretch a bit here and wait on the go there, and that can be put into the trash, the garbage. So the DRT is the solution, debt refusion theory, for the creation of the UE. You can argue all you want, but that's something similar to it is the solution, and we're going to do great good with the implementation of the DRT. We're going to rebuild the bridges, the tunnels, the rehabilitation of the North American highways. We're going to put it on the work to go. We're going to put it on the go. And that's all we're going to have to be doing on that. And we're going to get that rock and roll for all the brothers and sisters who lost their liberty also. As I sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue, I also got to sing that rock and roll for not just the boys and girls in blue, but all my brothers and sisters who lost their freedom and who do their criminal rehabilitation consequently, you know. And internally, in the prudent side of the matters of we are consequentially the Democratic Republican to be, and we're going to fuse the 10, the 50, and the 3, get rid of the border. We're going to get rid of the border as soon as possible. We don't need the border anymore. It's best if we focus coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and implement also the new 911 Dragonomy protocols for total security, total service, total defense, because we have, of course, the transnational crime elements because of our DMA, direct military action, and, of course, direct military assistance. It could be DMAA or both, direct military assistance and action, of course, and the fact that we are partaking in those NATO, non-NATO member countries' internal affairs and inner conflicts, or of course outside the conflicts of which we have to get it. That's how we gotta get doing like that, and that's how we gotta get doing on the drill, you know, for the left or right and the Z, and pledge your allegiance to our family. That is some things which we have to get it on the prudent side. And beautiful Jeep here, and it is the beginning of our imperial march for the individual sovereign citizen, securing the liberty of the citizen and the individual with the collective, and of course the collective liberty, part to maximize the overall well-being at the macro level wellness. That's the dream, totality of the dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom to avert Armageddon. Now we got some French. Bienvenue. On est bien sûr sur l'île de Montréal, québécoise. Je vous encourage à faire de l'entraînement physique. L'entraînement physique a été sera ma médecine et thérapie de choix. Donc, c'est quelque chose que je vous encourage. Puis, je viens voir le film Superman en anglais. C'était un bon film. Puis, bien sûr, c'est le 4e film que je vois cet été. Je suis bien content, car, bien sûr, ça fait le 4e mardi en ligne que je vois un film, puis c'est mardi, c'est en spécial, donc moi-même, en tant que j'ai de la difficulté financièrement, je peux me le permettre en ce moment. Donc ça a bien été, puis j'ai pu m'acheter des en sortant chez des chips à 1,47 après en sortant au cinéma, pas au cinéma en tant que tel, mais après ça. Fait qu'en tout cas, ça, puis je reviens du cinéma avec un ami anonyme, puis je dois commencer à chanter la gratitude, hein, parce que même si je vis un stress financier, ben, mon loyer est payé, ma facture d'électricité est payée, j'ai du café puis du thé, puis c'est des choses bien sûr que moi-même, il faut que je le fasse dans une situation où que j'envisage à faire, puis à dire bien sûr dans cette concordance à faire, d'avoir un envisagement, puis d'avoir toujours cette expérience cinématographique, puis moi-même en tant qu'artiste, athlète qui compose bien sûr des chansons, du dialogue, puis j'ai bien fait des vidéos un peu d'artistique, comédie, puis ben du rock'n'roll. Vous savez que j'ai l'Asperger, je suis neurodivergent, fait que la communication sociale peut être un peu bizarre, peut être étrange, puis on a de la difficulté dans ces choses-là, nous. Les Aspergers ont constitué un petit pourcentage, une petite minorité de moins d'1%, moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage, de 0,44%. Et nous, à cause des mutations du cerveau, c'est des mutations au niveau microscopique, c'est vraiment petit, tu sais, au niveau microscopique, là, c'est pas des grosses mutations qui vont être visibles sur le cerveau, sur le crâne, mais c'est des mutations à l'interne. Donc, à cause de ces mutations, ça fait que nous, on a de la misère dans certaines choses parce qu'on voit le monde différemment, puis on sait pas, c'est pas 100% qu'est-ce qui cause l'Asperger's, ça aussi connu comme l'autisme mouvement fonctionnel. Ça peut être une variété de combinaisons comme telle la génétique, l'héréditaire ou l'environnement. Fait que moi, c'est toujours, à chaque jour, au quotidien, je m'implique dans ce qu'on appelle là, les intérêts spéciaux chez l'Asperger's. Pour moi-même, c'est soit le rock'n'roll, l'entraînement physique, la danse ou, bien sûr, la géopolitique. Puis je suis un analyste théoricien et penseur et bien sûr un stratège. Ces 4 mots-là, qu'est-ce que je suis relatif au monde de la géopolitique, c'est dû à l'Asperger's. Mais même si je n'ai pas des diplômes de l'université, c'est ça que je fais au quotidien. Je prends beaucoup de fierté dans mon travail de la géopolitique, parallèlement au travail que je fais en tant qu'artiste du rock'n'roll. Puis je dois dire, encore une fois, pour celle-là, j'ai la preuve que j'ai bien sûr conclu en 2019, en octobre, novembre, j'ai conclu bien sûr qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale à l'avenir. Pour celle-là, j'ai la preuve, j'ai la vidéo en ligne. Fait qu'en 2019, en octobre, en novembre, j'ai prévu là, qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale. Qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant dans le monde? Pour pas être trop académique, intellectuel, philosophe dans le statut, c'est bien sûr, j'avais conclu qu'à cause que ben des pays, des nations, des civilisations n'ont pas été capables de résoudre leurs problèmes du 20e siècle. Que ces problèmes, ces conflits-là vont reprendre dans le 21e siècle. Pour la plupart de ce qui se passe maintenant, c'est ces problèmes, ces conflits du 20e siècle qui ont commencé du 20e siècle, qui étaient présents au 20e siècle, puis qui ont repris avec intensité dans le 21e siècle. C'est ces choses qui se passent maintenant vis-à-vis à ma prédiction. Fait que c'est un paradoxe, mais j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant, pas en tant que pas en tant que prophète, là, mais en tant qu'analyste, théoricien, penseur, et je développe des stratégies de la géopolitique. Qu'est-ce que je vous appelle à soutenir mon rêve? Bien sûr, le royaume de la déesse et du dragon qui danse, qui est fondamentalement un appel à l'implémentation, bien sûr, de ces stratégies de la géopolitique pour avoir la concordance, puis la sécurité service de côte à côte, puis de côte à côte, puis de côte à côte. Pour la service sécurité seulement interne, ce que j'appelle le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord. Donc, ici, on a fait le grand compromis au 20e siècle qu'on continue à faire de valoriser puis de l'apprentissage du français au Québec. C'est un grand compromis qu'on a fait en Amérique du Nord. Puis je veux dire, bien sûr, c'est sûr que le roi est absent. C'est le temps pour la République. Puis là, le 1er août, là, si un 35% nous frappe de tarifs, déjà que ça va pas bien, vous voyez, puis pour les États-Unis non plus. En économie, tu sais, les finances, on a 4 problèmes qui nous pressent. Fait que c'est pour ça que je vous dis que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est quelque chose de bien sûr qu'il faut que je fasse moi-même dans ce point d'explication parce que j'ai la solution. C'est un paradoxe, mais j'ai quand même une solution qui est valide. Même ce jour de la canicule jusqu'à demain, ça continue de la canicule. Donc, je voudrais l'expliquer le plus possible, le plus que je puisse, bien sûr, d'un point de vue de dire que c'est la solution, puis bien sûr, avoir ce point de contingence où qu'on est rendu à vivre moi-même en tant que neurodivergent, que je dois toujours bâtir des ponts avec vous, les 99,56% que vous constituez, bien sûr, les neurotypiques. Donc, je dois toujours bâtir des ponts plus petits, plus larges, plus d'autres moyens, plus extra larges. C'est 4 catégories. C'est sûr que ça a des sous-catégories, mais je dis comme ça, comme en termes peut-être quand vous commandez des frites ou du café, que ce soit une petite moyenne, grosse ou extra large. Tu sais. C'est 4 catégories de ponts comme que je dois toujours bâtir en tant qu'Asperger's, en tant que quelqu'un qui fait partie de cette petite communauté de moins d'un pourcentage. Il n'y a pas bien d'Asperger's comme moi-même, comme nous les Aspi, on constitue une petite minorité. Fait que des fois, on a de la misère dans certaines choses, mais moi je suis bon. Puis les Aspi doivent être encouragés dans leur intérêt spécial le plus possible. La géopolitique. J'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant. J'ai la preuve. J'ai la preuve en ligne. Je discute qu'est-ce qui va arriver. Puis généralement, à chaque détail, là, j'ai pas prévu que le 24 février 2022, la Russie va envahir l'Ukraine. Mais en général, j'avais prévu qu'il y aura une reprise de ces conflits du 20e siècle avec intensité, puis c'est ça qui se passe. Israël-Palestine, Hamas, l'organisation Hamas, c'est une organisation du 20e siècle, des années 80. La Russie et l'Ukraine, c'est des conflits qui n'ont pas eu de... à cause que l'Ukraine et la Russie étaient unis dans un complexe politique, sociopolitique, culturel, idéologique, aussi connu comme l'Union soviétique. Et voilà. Ben, la Chine et le Taïwan, c'est un autre conflit qui est sur l'horizon. C'est ça, j'ai pas toutes les réponses, mais au moins pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, j'ai une petite réponse. Puis c'est pour ça que je dis, mais moi, nous, les Aspi, on a 3 problèmes. Maintenant, pour moi, c'est juste financièrement. J'ai pas d'argent, mais je quand même pouvoir payer mon loyer, bien sûr, je vais pouvoir payer mon loyer. Mais c'est sûr que Les aspis, on a 3 problèmes. Le manque d'amis, mais si vous voulez être mon ami, moi je suis androgyne, pansexuel aussi, je fais partie de la communauté LGBTQ, vous êtes noir, femme, noire ou blanche ou homme-femme, vous voulez me faire de l'amour, ben, juste le consentement, puis il faudrait que vous ayez l'âge adulte, par exemple. Fait que dans ce point de vue, bien sûr, que nous, les aspirants, on n'a pas beaucoup d'amis. Je veux juste des amis avec bénéfice parce que je veux pas perdre le temps de personne, tu sais. Je veux pas perdre votre temps, perdez pas le mien, OK? Fait que c'est ça qui est ça, OK? Fait que là aussi, le point de contingence vis-à-vis qu'est-ce que je suis encore aussi, c'est bien sûr que nous, les aspirants, on souffre d'un taux élevé de sans-emploi. Puis celle-là, c'est inacceptable. Le taux de sans-emploi, du chômage chez les Aspergers, constituant une petite minorité, c'est 80%. C'est inacceptable, hein? 4 sur 5, 80%. L'autre problème, c'est le taux de suicide puis de dépression. Moi-même, j'ai vécu ça. J'étais en dépression. Hein? J'étais suicidaire, ça allait pas bien, mais qu'est-ce qui m'a fait sortir de ma dépression? Puis j'ai de la misère à souvenir de ma vie avant printemps 2014, comme la amnésie rétrograde, là, mais peut-être, je sais pas quelle vie je vivais avant 2014, peut-être parce que j'étais attaqué par surprise. Quel beau jardin ici, j'adore ça. Et d'une beauté exceptionnelle, ce petit jardin, ça. Mais un gros sourire sur le visage, bien sûr. Fait que c'est des choses, bien sûr, que je vais faire dans ce point comme ça, puis c'est des choses, bien sûr, que je vais dire. C'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que je vais dire dans ce point de compromis, bien sûr, dans ces choses que je vais dire, mais c'est des choses que je dois dire dans ce compromis qu'on fait linguistique pour en avoir, bien sûr, dans cette lignée qu'on vit ensemble, pour faire, bien sûr, de l'idéologie qu'on vit, bien sûr, puis qu'on se fasse encore ensemble, là, un petit royaume ici dans le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, en travaillant ensemble puis en bâtissant ces ponts, parce que c'est un paradoxe que la table, en mettant ses bisous, châteaux et câlins, puis la TRD, théorie de la réfusion de la dette, c'est un gros paradoxe, mais ça sort que ça arrive au bon moment juste. Puis là, c'est en août, là, on s'en va vers avoir un problème à cause des problèmes là, qui arrivent avec les tarifs. C'est un gros problème, ça. Puis, qu'est-ce que je vais dire maintenant? Que nous, là, les Québécois, Canadiens, Québécois, puis c'est réciproque pour les États-Unis, cette réalité géopolitique, cette déclaration, là, je vais déclarer celle-là, que cette prochaine déclaration géopolitique, il faut que vous dites oui. On ne peut pas dire non, puis on ne peut pas dire peut-être. Nous, là, notre intérêt principal, là, Québécois, Canadiens, puis c'est réciproque pour les États-Unis envers nous, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations. Puis je parle quand ça vient de la politique externe, évidemment. En première place, il faut que nous, tous nos politiciens de la gauche, de la droite, du centre, centre-gauche, centre-droite, je ne parle pas des extrêmes droite ou de l'extrême gauche, là, il faut qu'on soit alignés parce que envers que nous, les Canadiens et les États-Unis et les Canadiens, il faut qu'on ait les meilleures relations économiques, socioculturelles, de défense, de finances, de commerce, ensemble, envers nous. On ne peut pas dire non à ça. Vous comprenez? Ça là, c'est oui. Il n'y a pas de non à ça. Il y a juste oui, cette déclaration. Après ça, on ne peut pas avancer, bien sûr, Sinon, on ne peut pas avancer parce que c'est pas de la réalité géopolitique qui nous entoure, de 2 océans de côte à côte, l'Atlantique et le Pacifique. À l'est, c'est l'Atlantique. À l'ouest, c'est le Pacifique. Fait que de l'est à l'ouest. Fait que c'est quelque chose qui nous entoure puis qui nous fait, bien sûr, envisager d'avoir cette réalité géopolitique. C'est toujours comme ça. Il n'y a pas de non. Il n'y a pas de peut-être. Ça, c'est une réalité, bien sûr, qui nous touche à 100%. Sans dire non. Fait que là, je vous discute de la TRD parce qu'on a 4 problèmes de finances. Soit les loyers qui augmentent, même le mien a augmenté, mais je ne peux pas me plaindre pour le mien, c'est un maximum 10. Je ne pourrais pas dire, si je vais dire, c'est entre 6 et 10 pour moi-même. La pression économique, des coûts, les coûts de la vie, là, ça augmente, tous les prix augmentent. Quasiment tous les prix, pas tout, mais je parle du lait, du pain, même j'ai acheté la 3 ans et demi à 1$, le chocolat importé de 100 grammes de la Suisse. Là, c'est la 3e fois qu'il a augmenté. 4e fois, c'est rendu à 1,99. 98, ça a doublé de 99 cents d'$1. Ça a doublé exactement en 3 ans et demi. La première fois, il a augmenté de 17 cents. Après ça, de 1,17 à 1,25. De 1,25 à 1,49. Puis là, finalement, d'un 50 cents. grosse augmentation. Puis ils disent que c'est le prix du cacao, c'est ça, ou le transport, etc., mais quand même, ça a doublé en 3 ans et demi, puis les prix augmentent. Fait que la TRD, la théorie de la refusion de la dette, on n'a pas le choix de faire l'implémentation pour la création d'une unité d'échange universelle. Je vous l'explique. Puis dans la TRD, ça contient la théorie d'intégration monétaire. C'est après, c'est urgent, c'est créé de problème. En plus de ça, qui se rajoute que les cartes de crédit, bien sûr, c'est à un niveau record. C'est des cartes de crédit, bien sûr, qui sont à un niveau record, bien sûr, dans le faire de la situation, bien sûr, d'avoir du compromis, bien sûr, pour le vivre dans la santé, puis bien sûr, pour le vivre dans la santé ensemble, pour le faire, bien sûr, c'est des compromis qu'on doit vivre ensemble par la création de l'unité d'échange universelle. Fait que, bien sûr, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, je vous l'explique. Ça contient la théorie d'intégration monétaire. On va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000, son 10 000, son 10 000, de côte à côte de sien à sien. Tout cet argent-là, on va faire la conversion dans la devise des États-Unis. Fait que mon 10 000, ton 10 000, son 10 000, toute la dette publique-privée, on va faire la conversion dans la devise des États-Unis. OK? On va rajouter avec la dette publique-privée des États-Unis, on va faire la création d'une nouvelle banque collective, comme qu'ils ont fait en Europe. Hein? La banque, ils n'ont plus de banque nationale. Hein? Les pays en Europe, bien des pays en Europe, l'Allemagne, l'Italie, la France, la Belge, depuis des années 90. On va faire la création d'une nouvelle banque, puis on va faire la création, mettre en circulation une nouvelle monnaie pour le Canada et les États-Unis, puis après ça, ça peut s'élargir, là. Le Mexique, blablabla, l'Haïti, que ce soit, l'Amérique du Nord, mais fondamentalement, bien sûr, pour le collectif, bien sûr, on va faire la création de l'unité d'échange universel. U point unité, point échange, point universel. Oui. U point unité, point échange universel. U point unité, point échange universel. Oui. U point unité, point échange universel. U point unité, point échange, point universel. L'unité d'échange universel aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. On va mettre un taux d'intérêt de 10%. Donc, ça peut être moins de 10%, mais pas plus. Fait qu'on va faire du bien commun avec ça parce que moi, ça prend un partenariat public-privé, tu sais. Un partenariat public-privé pour le faire. Fait qu'on va faire financement des gens au tourisme. On va finir avec la frontière. On va faire un grand recensement. On va donner une certaine amnistie. Et bien sûr, on va unir de côte à côte pour la sécurité-service. On va faire l'implémentation, bien sûr, d'une nouvelle intégrale de société, bien sûr, intègre dans le collectif en faisant la création de 2 institutions nouvelles, soit l'armée impériale pour la sécurité service défense, aussi connue comme l'armée du dragon qui servira juste pour la sécurité service défense de côte à côte, l'armée de la déesse qui danse, soit l'armée impériale de la danse. L'armée impériale de la danse, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose que je dois le faire, bien sûr, dans ce point de contingence. L'armée de la déesse qui danse pour l'environnement. On va financer les gens au tourisme, à l'entraînement physique aussi. On va finir avec la frontière, il n'y aura plus de frontière parce qu'on va combattre les groupes criminels transnationaux qui peuvent être influencés vers l'extérieur aussi. Hein. Ils peuvent être influencés de l'extérieur en ce moment à cause de notre implication militaire aussi envers les pays qui ne sont pas membres de l'OTAN. Fait que tout en prenant compte de toute la géopolitique puis le fait que j'ai prévu, puis que je fais appel aussi, bien sûr, en faisant l'implémentation de la TRD, la Constitution de l'unité d'échange universelle, on va faire un grand recensement dans les 10 provinces, 50 États, 3 territoires. On va faire la création d'un passeport commun. Fait qu'on va faire beaucoup de bien avec ça. On va financer les gens, encore une fois, au tourisme. Et je dois remercier les gens qui ont donné. Ça, c'est de la soupe. Je ne vais pas en prendre moi-même, mais c'est de la bonne soupe. Là. C'est compostable. Là. Ça peut être compostable, celle-là. Fait que c'est toujours quelque chose que j'adore et que je fais appel, bien sûr, aux gens. Je vais peut-être prendre de la soupe pour voir. Je vais prendre la soupe. Je vais prendre la soupe un peu, voir s'il y a de la soupe là, pour le faire. Mais je vais bien sûr visiter pour faire de la soupe. On va voir s'il y a de la soupe, s'ils font bien sûr pour les autres qui sont là. Et merci, j'apprécie ça. Hein. Ça commence, c'est sûr, avec les fermiers, tu sais. Faut penser, juste pour avoir de la soupe, tu sais. Ça se rend pour avoir de la soupe, c'est quand même un processus. Imagine ça, tu sais. dans les fermes, comment il y a les chaînes de transport, et bien sûr, dans les chaînes de transport, on dépend de ça. Fait que c'est toujours quelque chose qu'on doit comprendre pour acquis au quotidien, mais c'est un privilège de la société, c'est un privilège de la civilisation, t'sais. C'est un privilège de la civilisation. T'sais. C'est ça qui est ça. Maintenant, les camionneurs sur la route, ils sont en train de traverser avec tellement de nourriture. Là. C'est tellement... On a évolué, puis on a établi ça dans des décennies, puis décennies. Hein. Mais c'est un privilège de la civilisation, tel avoir la lumière, l'Hydro-Québec, puis avoir ce pouvoir que j'aille pouvoir boire de l'eau, là, les aqueducs, tout ça. C'est pour ça, avec la TRD, on va faire bien sûr la réhabilitation de nos frères et sœurs qui ont perdu leur liberté. Il faut qu'on bâtit les 44 tunnels. Dans le cas d'une guerre thermonucléaire, c'est sûr qu'il faut construire les 44 tunnels. Dans le cas d'une guerre thermonucléaire, il faut bâtir en bas, en souterrain, à travers le collectif, dans le cas d'une guerre nucléaire, qui c'est possible. Hein?